Today, the Apartheid Museum and the Oliver and Adelaide Tambo Foundation will launch an exhibition that is called Oliver Reginald Tambo, the Modest Revolutionary 1917 to 1993. This, of course, is to mark the centenary of the departed struggle icon. Our Morning Live producer, Desiree Chauke, is at the museum this morning, and she's there to give us a glimpse into the images that are currently on display at the museum. Des, good morning to you.
A very good morning to you, Palisa, and thank you so much. Welcome to the George Bezos Gallery within the Apartheid Museum, where this amazing exhibition is being housed that tells the story of how Oliver Reginald Tambo took the struggle against apartheid to the world. And to tell us more, not necessarily about the exhibition, but about the man, we're joined now by Dr. Kingsley Makhubela. He is the CEO of the Chief Executive Officer of Brand SA. Dr. Makhubela, thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you, Desiree.
For many years, you were part of the core team of the OR Tambo machinery. What was that like? Tell us what about the man and how it was to work with him and how you got to work with him.
Let me tell you, I was very much privileged to have worked with OR. We always referred to him as Chief. He was an outstanding leader. But one thing that I really like to highlight, reflecting on the life of OR Tambo, is around developing a framework for negotiations that really helped us to negotiate to a new South Africa. Unfortunately, he was not part of that negotiation. No. OR devised what we call initially the Harare Declaration, which was later adopted by the United Nations as a declaration on apartheid and its destructive consequences in Southern Africa. That document spells out details of how the negotiation should take place. It was a masterstroke of significant proportion that OR developed. And he consulted everybody, including those who were in prison. So he developed a very good framework. If you look at that document, the basis of it is that South Africa must be a constitutional democracy with checks and balances. The judiciary that must be independent. So that was the work of OR. He really helped us. Had OR not done that, would have probably gone document as a strategy of the ANC for negotiation. It was adopted by the frontline states, adopted by a summit of heads of state at the OAU at that time. It was also adopted by the United Nations as a consensus resolution. The apartheid regime did not know that OR was working on such conditions. Now, scholars of conflict resolution would argue that in any negotiations, there's a give and take. Yeah. And OR realized that. And he realized that oppressed people have nothing to give in terms of the negotiations. We expected more concessions from apartheid regime. That's why if you look at the document, it spells out conditions conducive for negotiation. It spells out what the apartheid regime needed to do. So the only item on the negotiation was dismantling apartheid, which was a masterstroke.
Give us a sense of the time. I can see you're trying to evade the question about your involvement, and I hope you will tell us that later. But just a sense of the time in talking about his inclusive leadership and how he gave responsibility to the people who were working with him on this massive project.
Well, OR had a lot of trust in his leadership. He would delegate tasks to everyone in the organization, be the Secretary General, and he was also consulting with what we used to call the President's Committee that included the most senior people in the ANC. I mean, I remember we would come back from London on Christmas Day. The first thing he would do would go to church. After church, he would have a meeting to start planning about the January 8th statement with the entire leadership, with the entire top 5 leadership. So he would consult in terms of the January 8th statement, the program of action, and that program action would permeate through political structures in the country. So he was a very inclusive and consultative leader.
Let's talk about this exhibition today and how far it goes towards putting away that notion that OR is not treasured or remembered enough.
Well, Desiree, I think this is the beginning. I think the celebration of OR centenary, it gives us the opportunity as South Africans to start reflecting on the man and his contribution in the liberation struggle. as I'm saying, OR contributed significantly in terms of strategies to dismantle apartheid. He's the one, actually, who lifted the spirit of prisoners. He used, for instance, Nelson Mandela to galvanize support around the world. OR was given awards. He would prefer, actually, those awards to be given to those who were in prison. He refused to take them. So that was the type of the leader who never took trophies, but really wanted to give trophies to those who were suffering.
And that's where we'll leave it. Thank you so much. Dr. Kingsley Makubela is the Chief Executive Officer of Brand SA, and he's the keynote speaker today when the Apartheid Museum launches the OR Tambo exhibition, a modest revolutionary it's called. Let's go back to the studio. Valen is standing by with the latest on your spot.